And this morning, the committee meets to consider the nomination of Admiral John Aquilino to be the next commander of U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, or Indo-Pacom. Admiral, we thank you and your family for your willingness to serve this important position. We will welcome your wife, Laura, and your daughter, Jessica, along with your colleagues from the Pacific Fleet. Thank you very much. You've most recently served as the commander of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, an experience that will serve you well. The Indo-Pacific has emerged as the Department of Defense's priority theater. As Admiral Davidson highlighted at his posture hearing earlier this month, the region will be home to 2/3 of the world's population and generate 2/3 of the global economy in the next 10 years. Maintaining U.S. leadership in this consequential region will take a concerted whole-of-government effort, but the U.S. military, specifically Indo-Pacom, will play a central role. Secretary Austin has appropriately labeled China as the pacing threat for the U.S. military. I agree with experts who have stated that China is a long-term challenge that must be managed rather than solved. Part of managing our strategic competition with China and ensuring a free and open Indo-Pacific is the need to maintain a strong presence in the region and a credible conventional deterrent to military aggression. For this reason, in last year's National Defense Authorization Act, the committee created the Pacific Deterrence Initiative, or PDI. The PDI is intended to better focus Defense Department resources on key military capabilities, reassure U.S. allies and partners, and send a strong signal to the Chinese Communist Party that we are committed to defending U.S. interests in the Indo-Pacific. Maintaining momentum behind the PDI will be a key focus of this committee as we begin work on this year's National Defense Authorization Act. Admiral Aquilino, we look forward to hearing your views on how the PDI can be used to bolster U.S. military presence and conventional deterrence in the region. China and the U.S. have a shared goal of avoiding unnecessarily and costly armed conflict. Last week, U.S.-China diplomatic meeting in Alaska was not without its challenges, but provided an important opportunity for us to engage China, express our concern with China's conduct in the region and around the world, and reiterate our commitment to the region. We should look to build upon last week's meeting by establishing more robust means of military-to-military communication, particularly to avoid miscalculation in a crisis. We should also seek greater cooperation with China when it is in our interest, including areas like climate change, the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, and counterterrorism. Effectively managing our competition with China also requires that we continually invest in our relationship with allies and partners. The last few weeks have demonstrated just how central these relationships are to the Biden administration's approach to the region. On March 12th, President Biden participated in the first ever leader-level meeting with other members of the Quad, Japan, Australia, and India. Just last week, Secretary of Defense Austin and Secretary of State Blinken held in-person meetings with their counterparts in Japan and South Korea. Admiral Aquilino, we look forward to your views on how these alliances and partnerships can be strengthened and how we can attract new partners across the region. Perhaps our most immediate security challenge in the region is North Korea. We must approach this challenge clear-eyed in cooperation with our regional allies and partners, most notably Japan and South Korea, who are most directly threatened by Kim Jong-un's belligerent behavior. While we maintain significant sanctions pressure on North Korea, we must also pursue diplomacy with the goal of achieving a formal moratorium on nuclear and missile testing in the near term. Admiral Aquilino, I would appreciate your views on the regional threat posed by North Korea and the prospects for greater trilateral cooperation between the United States, Japan, and South Korea on missile defense and other issues. Admiral, if confirmed, you will lead Indo-Pacom at an incredibly consequential time, and we thank you again for your willingness to serve. And now let me recognize the ranking member, Senator Inhofe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral Aquilino, we're real pleased to have you in moving into a position where you're certainly the person most qualified for that position. With over 1,150 carrier-arrested landings and 5,000 hours of flying time, I think that you spend a lot of time on the sea, but also a lot of time in the air. And I have to say that I may have twice the hours you have, but you have twice the miles I have. The Secretary Austin and Deputy Secretary Hicks said China is the pacing threat for our military, and General Milley said the Pacific is the #1 regional priority. We all understand this. This administration is saying the right things about pushing back on Chinese aggression, but the key indicator of whether or not we're serious about this is competition with China will be what we do with the defense budget top line, the real growth. The words don't have real meaning. The top line of the defense budget and the amount of funding for the Pacific Deterrence Initiative will be the Biden administration's first and most important message to China. What we do and don't do to deter China in the military domain will underwrite and determine the success or failure of diplomatic, economic, and information efforts as well. Simply put, if you fail to invest in defense and as a result fail to deter China's use of military force in the Indo-Pacific, nothing you do in those areas will really matter. Admiral Aquilino, if confirmed as commander of Indo-Pacom, you'd be on the front lines of the military competition with China. There must never come a day when the leaders of the Chinese Communist Party decide today is the day they can achieve their goal by using military force. At the beginning of March, General McMaster told us that since the 1900s, China has undertaken the largest peacetime military buildup in history. This ramp up in the past decade when China increased real purchasing power in the defense sector by $200 billion. Meanwhile, primarily during the Obama administration, America cut some $400 billion of purchasing power from our defense spending. As China was quietly increasing investments in defense, many U.S. leaders naively assumed when China joined the WTO in 2001 that it was integrated in the global economy. Somehow this would make Chinese Communist Party friendlier and more open to the West. I predicted it wouldn't and was right. The result of that bad assumption is American military advantage and the credibility of our deterrence has eroded, and it comes to erosion. So we got a problem out there, and you're going to be right in the middle of that, and we are anxious to make some really good things happen. As General McMaster told us, Taiwan may represent the most dangerous flashpoint for war, and when Admiral Davidson was asked what is most likely target for the Chinese military action would be in the next 5 to 10 years, he said, I would say Taiwan is the first. So we know where our problems are. We appreciate your service and look forward to this tenure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Inhofe. Now let me recognize Senator Hirono to introduce the Admiral. Senator Hirono.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I very much appreciate your remarks and Ranking Member Inhofe's remarks in recognizing the importance of the Indo-Pacific region. Our country faces an array of challenges and opportunities in the Indo-Pacific region, and AOR stretching from the west coast of the United States to the western border of India and from the North Pole to Antarctica, covering about half of the Earth's surface. At a time when we are confronting an increasingly aggressive China and looking to deepen our defense ties with allies in the Indo-Pacific, it is imperative we have an experienced leader at Indo-Pacific Command capable of meeting the urgency and sensitivity of the moment. With this in mind, I'd like to introduce and enthusiastically endorse today's nominee and, of course, welcome his family, Admiral John C. Aquilino, to serve as the next commander of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command. Admiral Aquilino's 37 years of Navy service, highlighted by command of the U.S. Pacific Fleet and the U.S. Naval Forces Central Command, make him well-suited for this new role. Since assuming command of the Navy's Pacific Fleet in 2018, I've seen how the Admiral and his leadership team at PAC Fleet have worked to ensure the readiness of the fleet to protect the security of our nation. From his headquarters at Pearl Harbor, Lung Aquilino, as he is affectionately known to those under his command, has guided the 140,000 sailors and civilians of the Pacific Fleet to meet challenges and opportunities presented. I have to admit, Lung is such an unusual nickname, and I had to ask how he got it. It was coined years ago by his fighter pilot buddies who thought his last name sounded like Aqualung, and with that, the name Lung was born. Lung's message of, quote, deter, assure, compete, and win, end quote, is the right message for Indo-Pacom today. I've gotten to work with Admiral Aquilino during his time in Hawaii and know firsthand he believes in the power of working together to find whole-of-government solutions, the importance of our alliances and partnerships, and the imperative for a well-trained and postured force. I've appreciated the interactions Admiral Aquilino and I have had on issues of importance to Hawaii and the Pacific region, including the strategically vital Red Hill bulk fuel storage facility. In operating the Red Hill facility, the Navy has a critical responsibility to protect Oahu's drinking water and keep the community updated. The Admiral knows the importance of transparent and open community engagement. Admiral Aquilino also has a personal appreciation of the significance of Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard to our community. The shipyard is our largest industrial employer with thousands of military and civilian workers who support our forces and broader Indo-Pacific region to advance our strategic interests. Admiral Aquilino participated in shipyard visits with Senator Kane, former Senator Perdue, and me over the past 2 years. As evidenced throughout his years of service, Admiral Aquilino has demonstrated a deep understanding of Hawaii's strategic importance to our national security, and he advocates for capabilities and nurtures relationships, to help Hawaii fully realize its role in America's continued access and influence in the Indo-Pacific. If you speak to those who serve in his command, you will find Admiral Aquilino has deep and abiding care for his sailors, civilians, and their families by working to instill an environment of dignity and purpose. This care was evident in Admiral Aquilino's actions after a gunman took the lives of Roldan Augustin and Vincent Kapoy Jr., and seriously injured another man during the horrific shooting at Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard on December 4th, 2019. Admiral Aquilino paid special care to the families of the victims and the shipyard community during this intense time of grief. A few months ago, he organized a memorial service marking the 1-year anniversary of the tragic event and installed a permanent memorial plaque to honor the lives and service of Mr. Augustin and Mr. Kapoy Jr. I am confident that after today's hearing, my colleagues will join me in supporting Admiral Aquilino's nomination to lead Indo-Pacom. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Hirono. Admiral, you are recognized for your opening statement.
Thank you very much, Senator Hirono, for that kind introduction. Congratulations on your selection as the chair of the Sea Power Subcommittee. It has been my pleasure to work with you these past 3 years, and from all the sailors in the Pacific Theater and their families, I'd like to thank you for your constant support. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you, Chairman Reed, Ranking Member Inhofe, and committee members for this opportunity to appear before you today. I am both honored and humbled to be here as the nominee to lead U.S. Indo-Pacific Command. It is a great responsibility. I'm honored to be President Biden's nominee for this important position. I'd also like to thank Secretary Austin, General Milley, Acting Secretary Harker, and Admiral Gilday for their support and confidence. I would not be here today without the love and support of my family. My wife, Laura, my oldest daughter, Jessica, are here with me today, and my daughter, Lisa, was unable to attend from Los Angeles. Like every military family, they have endured many sacrifices, and they tirelessly advocate for military members and their families. They set a tremendous example of service to our nation, and I'm proud of each of them. Also with me here today are members of my Navy family, and they're led by Fleet Master Chief Jim Honey. He is my right-hand man, and he personally cares for over 140,000 Navy sailors and their families in the Pacific Fleet every day. I would be remiss if I did not highlight my constant admiration and respect for the men, women, civilians, and families of our joint force who faithfully serve, many deployed as we speak, to defend our nation and protect our way of life. It has been my greatest privilege to have served alongside them for 37 years. The Indo-Pacific is the most consequential reason for America's future and remains the priority theater for the United States. Residing here are 4 of the 5 security challenges identified in the Department of Defense: China, Russia, North Korea, and violent extremist organizations. The Indo-Pacific region also experiences frequent natural and man-made disasters, the negative impacts of climate change, rapid population growth, drug and human trafficking, and of course, disease and pandemics. Of all the threats we face, Secretary Austin was very clear when he stated, China is our pacing threat. To meet this challenge, it will take all elements of national power working together and with a sense of urgency. Together with our allies and partners, our professionally trained and lethal joint military force, postured forward, will provide the deterrence required while enabling diplomacy from a position of strength to ensure peace, stability, and prosperity for all in the region. The Pacific Deterrence Initiative is a strong example of the effort required to compete and win. I thank the committee for your leadership and your vision in establishing PDI. These efforts are foundational to ensuring a free and open Indo-Pacific. As the Interim National Security Strategic Guidance points out, America's fate is intertwined with events beyond our shores. Global peace and prosperity depends on our presence in the Indo-Pacific. If confirmed for this great responsibility, I look forward to working with this committee as we advance our shared national security objectives while continuing to serve alongside Indo-Pacific's men and women to accomplish this important mission before us. Thanks, Chairman Reed, Ranking Member Inhofe, and to the committee. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, sir. Let me point out, for the benefit of my colleagues, that if we get a quorum, I will interrupt. We have thousands of military nominations we'd like to pass out of committee. And also, since this is a hybrid hearing, we will not follow the early bird rule. Instead, we'll handle the order of questions by seniority, alternating back and forth. This message is getting a little old, but let me reiterate it. We'll do the standard 5-minute rounds. I ask my colleagues on the computers and at their desks to observe the 5 minutes. And then for everyone to be heard, please mute your microphones if you're not speaking. But thank you very much, Adam, for your testimony and for your distinguished service and the service of your family. One of the most important aspects in any theater is joint warfighting operations. We fight as a team, not as individual platforms or individual services. And I know the Joint Staff and Indo-Pacom have been working on joint operations, joint techniques and models. COVID has interrupted that a bit. Can you give us kind of a status from your perspective of how we're doing in integrating our forces?
Yes, Senator, thanks. So there's 2 initiatives. Admiral Davidson, along with the Joint Staff, is working on a joint warfighting concept. Those focus areas are designed to specifically ensure that the joint force is integrated, The command and control that's required exists, and on top of that, from the Indo-Pacific position, it has the ability to also expand to our allies and partners. It's extremely important, and if confirmed, Senator, I'll continue those efforts. They're that important.
Can you briefly prioritize what are the key elements? My notion would be if you can't communicate effectively, then you can't do much. But your sense of what the priorities are, and are they budgeted in that order, or do we have to do some work collectively?
Senator, the Pacific Defense Initiative, I think, is kind of the poster child for what the capabilities and things look like in prioritized order. And again, I thank the committee for that support. Those capabilities, as I see them, are force protection. There's the ability to command, control, and communicate in the mission partner environment. Then there's the ability needed to train, both with the joint force and our allies and partners, and that linkage between the ranges from Guam to Hawaii to Alaska to the west coast of the United States. PIMTEC is absolutely required. Additionally, there's ISR capabilities needed. There's long-range joint integrated fires capabilities that are needed. And underpinning all of that is the need to be able to execute logistics across that great distance.
So we have a ways to go, frankly, to get to the point where you're satisfied. Is that fair?
Senator, again, I think PDI is foundational, but it will take a longer-term sustained investment to be able to generate the deterrence required.
And a final point on this issue, integrating our allies, first of all, integrating Army, Navy, Air Force is tough. I would assume integrating our allies is even more challenging because of obvious differences in language and other equipment, et cetera. Is that fair?
That's absolutely fair, sir, but it is also extremely important. We operate with our allies and partners each and every day, so it is certainly not a hurdle we can't get over, and it's critically important.
Thank you. You mentioned this has to be a whole-of-government effort, not just a military effort. And within our partners, particularly the Quad, are there issues that we can rally around, issues like climate change and other issues like that? Is that something that's your State Department and colleagues are talking about?
Senator, there are many areas where we certainly cooperate across the whole of government approach, economic, diplomatic, informational, legal, as well as military. All of those efforts will be required to do the deterrence needed. And if confirmed, I'm certainly interested in working across the interagency to achieve that goal.
Thank you very much. Just a final question here is, I think we've come to realize that we were overly optimistic about China's role in the world for several decades when we saw it as simply an economic power that would come into the world stage with benign, not malign attitudes, and that's changed. The danger today might be overestimating China, of not seeing some of the vulnerabilities. Can you comment upon some of the shortcomings you see or some of the weaknesses that might be not be explored?
Thanks, Senator. Certainly, we've seen the largest military buildup by China. That does bring with it certain vulnerabilities, whether it be training, command and control, and operations across a broader scale. And again, if confirmed, I will look through that lens to see where we can really have some effect to deter.
Thank you very much, Al. Before I turn it over to Senator Inhofe, I'm required to ask questions of the nominee, and I've been reminded my staff to do so. So just like the Master Chief, I do what I'm told. Have you adhered to applicable laws and regulations governing conflicts of interest?
Yes, sir.
Have you assumed any duties or taken any actions that would appear to presume the outcome of the confirmation process?
No, sir.
Exercising our legislative and oversight responsibility makes it important that this committee, its subcommittees, and other appropriate committees of Congress receive testimony, briefings, reports, records, and other information from the executive branch on a timely basis. Do you agree, if confirmed, to appear and testify before this committee when requested?
Yes, sir.
Do you agree, when asked before this committee, to give your personal views, even if your views differ from the administration?
Yes, sir.
Do you agree to provide records, documents, and electronic communications in a timely manner when requested by this committee, its subcommittees, or other appropriate committees of Congress, and to consult with the requester regarding the basis for any good faith delay or denial in providing such records?
Yes, sir.
Will you ensure that your staff complies with deadlines established by this committee for the production of reports, records, and other information, including timely responding to hearing questions for the record?
Yes, sir.
Will you cooperate in providing witnesses and briefings in response to congressional requests?
Yes, sir.
Will those witnesses and briefings be protected from reprisals for the testimony or briefings?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Admiral. Senator Inhofe, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me draw on your experience as a fighter pilot. It's been concerning to me for quite some time, the criticism of our F-35 that we hear from a lot of people. I won't even mention the sources, but it is something that really bothers me when you stop and think about what we don't have in terms of fifth-generation fighters. Admiral Davidson's testimony, this is way back in March to the House Armed Services Committee. He said that our adversaries are already developing or fielding fifth-generation fighters, and we know from our own gaming and emulations that fifth-generation fighters are a game changer. Now, as a fighter pilot, kind of explain why the F-35 as a fifth-generation fighter is so critical to deterring and, if necessary, defeating China's use of the military force. And in your opinion, why it's important to the ability to fight and win inside the first and second island chains. I can remember when we had the F-22, and we talked about the fact that as a fifth-generation fighter, we started out, we were going to have 700 of them. We ended up getting 200. I remember that very well, and the criticism that I had at that time. And we've had the same problems now. And yet now we know it's a different game now, because our competition has fifth-generation fighters. What are your thoughts on that?
Thank you, Senator. As you know, the Chinese Communist Party has generated some capabilities in the region that are designed to keep us out. Some refer those as A2AD, and when we talk about them, we talk about operating in contested space. Fifth-generation airplanes and beyond are required to be able to generate a lethal force and posture it in a place where it's needed to generate the deterrence that I've mentioned.
Yeah, are your concerns like mine in terms of the attacks on the F-35 and what our capacity would be if we became weak in that area?
Yes, Senator, I would be concerned if we lessened our capacity of fifth-generation airplanes. I think they're needed to win.
Mm-hmm. Okay, as General McMaster told this committee, and this is a quote, Taiwan may represent the most dangerous flashpoint for war. He went on to say, because of that very real threat, quote, it is immensely important to keep forward positioned, capable forces in the Indo-Pacific. So, Admiral, I've been the co-chairman of the Taiwan caucus for quite a while, and I've been concerned that the Chinese invasion of Taiwan would represent the hardest test for U.S. military response times. Can you talk about why the U.S. forward positioning forces are so important, and what do you mean by forward positioning, and where do the forces need to be?
Thanks, Senator. I would agree with General McMaster's discussion on the most dangerous concern is that of military force against Taiwan. To combat that, the forward posture west of the international date line is how Admiral Davidson describes it, and I concur with that. Forces positioned to be able to respond quickly, and not just our forces, those forces combined with the international community, with our allies and partners, those nations with common values, those two things would position us very strongly for the deterrence required.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Inhofe. Now let me recognize Senator Shaheen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Admiral Aquilino, congratulations on your nomination, and thank you very much for your service to this country. I am a big supporter of the legislation that was signed into law in 2017, the Women, Peace, and Security Act. It was legislation that I sponsored, and I think having a government-wide strategy to include women in all aspects of our security decisions is very important. Implementation at DoD is underway, and in fact, U.S. Indo-Pacom has played a really important role implementing the legislation, hosting the first Gender and Security Cooperation course in January of 2020. U.S. Indo-Pacom also hosted 2 operational gender advisor courses to train personnel to serve as advisors. Can you talk about why you think it's important to have this kind of legislation and how you would continue the work that Admiral Davidson has begun?
Yes, Senator, thanks. Again, this is one of our asymmetric advantages, the Women, Peace, and Security Initiative. Admiral Davidson took it extremely seriously, and he implemented his own program aligned with the larger program, but really stepped out in the form of the example you mentioned, and those events are even more broad than that. And if I'm confirmed, ma'am, I would continue those efforts and work to expand them. It helps for other nations to understand and align with the values that we believe in, human rights, and it's a great initiative. If confirmed, I would certainly continue that.
Well, thank you. When you talk about the asymmetric advantage that it gives us, can you describe that a little better?
I would say it's a focus. Many, when we think of a member of the military sitting in front of you, that the entire focus is military, but it's not. There's cultural aspects, there's sharing of values, there's education, training, schooling, all those things are resonant in the military lines of effort. So that's how I view them as asymmetric.
Thanks very much. Much of the discussion today and in this committee, when we're talking about the Indo-Pacom, has focused on China. But in fact, Russia continues to also engage in malign activities in the region. And we saw General Austin, when he was in India last week, talking about India's planned purchase of Russia's S-400 defense system, which is a concern for us because of the insights that it gives Russia into our technology. Can you talk about how we balance still getting along with our allies and the efforts that Russia has underway? And in particular, do you have any thoughts about India and the S-400 and what we can do there to address that?
Yes, Senator. As Senator Hirono identified, right, so half the globe encompassed in the Indo-Pacific. 1,700 miles of Russian coastline in that region. So we watch and we will continue to compete with Russia in the Pacific. That said, India is really a terrific partner. And as we've seen from the recent Quad discussions, I think the importance of India and the rest of the nations in the Quad will increase. We're at a balance, however. India has had a long-standing relationship with the Russians for security cooperation and for military equipment. So we'll have to work through this, and one of the ways we can do that, again, if confirmed, I would work to continue to encourage India to look at and consider U.S. equipment. Number one, it's the best. Number two, it generates interoperability and makes it easier to work together. And I think we should encourage India to do that through all the elements of national power and see where that goes.
And should we sanction India if they acquire the S-400?
Ma'am, I think I would leave that to the policymakers to determine if that's a path. I think we certainly should understand where we are with India, and I think potentially the encouragement angle and providing alternatives might be a better approach.
Thank you. And just I'm almost out of time, but I just wanted to raise one other issue with you, and that is the mysterious brain injuries that have come to be known as the Havana syndrome, which have affected our diplomats and other personnel, not just in Cuba, but also in China. Are you aware of the challenges around these injuries? And can I just urge you to take the attack seriously and respond if you have any personnel that you come in contact with who say that they have been harmed by these kinds of attacks?
Yes, Senator, I'm aware. I will certainly treat it seriously if confirmed, and the care and welfare of our service members, their families, to include the diplomatic corps, is certainly of interest, and I will keep an eye on that if confirmed and make recommendations as we see what the causes might be.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Sheen. Senator Wicker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral, let's talk about the size of our fleet and the capability. And I want to quote Admiral Davidson earlier this month before this committee when asked about the gap between the Chinese and U.S. naval forces. He said, quote, "If we don't make changes in our posture forward, the Chinese will have greater capacity than us." Given what you know about China's rapid naval buildup and projected growth, do you believe our naval forces still present a credible deterrent to Chinese aggression in the region today? And what do you say to that projected 5 years from now, sir?
Thank you, Senator. From my current seat, I'd like to highlight that the United States Navy is the most powerful, greatest Navy on the planet still, despite numbers. That said, as you've highlighted, the Chinese are increasing their capability and capacity and closing that gap. So I'd like to thank CNO Gilday for his efforts in identifying the 30-year shipbuilding plan that identifies the need for a larger, more lethal, networked, and ready force to be able to compete today, as you've highlighted.
You support that plan advanced by Gilday?
Yes, Senator.
And you agree with the statement by Admiral Davidson a few days ago?
Yes, Senator.
Let's ask then about carriers specifically. What kind of carrier presence is needed in the Western Pacific, and does the Navy have enough carriers to support those needs?
Senator, currently the Navy is in alignment with the law of the land of 11 carriers. And as you know, today's carrier strike groups are a tremendous form of deterrence, and that is globally against all competitors. You see that by the continued requests for additional carrier deployments, and I believe we need to have persistent presence by all of the joint forces to include carrier strike groups west of the international date line.
Well, okay, we've complied with the law of the land at 11, but is that enough, though? Just tell us. We need to know. We can change the law of the land if we get up enough votes.
Yes, sir. I think currently that the size of that force is correct, unless additional challenges show themselves.
So tell us about the Ford. There have certainly been some hiccups and slips, but where is that program now, and what do you think about that vessel going forward?
Senator, I'm supportive of the Ford. We've took a lot of great new technologies We've put them into that carrier. It is the first of the class, and if you go back through history, you will find we have challenges when we go first of a class. I am confident that the Navy will overcome all of those challenges, and I know my counterpart on the East Coast is working to get forward deployed as soon as possible.
Have they pretty much already overcome most of those challenges? Or they're still, you say will, I might have expected you to say that we have overcome most of them.
Yes, Senator, I would argue almost all of those have been completed. 11, all but 2 of the weapons elevators are repaired, as I understand it, and we are certainly through all those technological challenges. The next thing you should see will be forward deployed.
And lastly, I join Senator Inhofe in stressing the United States' friendship and support for Taiwan. Would you like to see greater official coordination between our military and that of Taiwan? And if so, what measures do you think could be taken in the near future to strengthen this critical partnership?
Thanks, Senator. I think our operations and efforts through all of those training exercises are currently in accordance with the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 communiques and the 6 assurances, which is the current policies. Should we choose to change those policies, we could have a conversation on what might be expanded as it applies today.
But you are declining to give your opinion as to whether you would like to see greater cooperation between our military and Taiwan's.
Sir, we do many things with Taiwan, again, under those current policy guidelines. We do exercise for the Navy. It's called Blue Sea. And we do have interactions that contribute to the defense of Taiwan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Wicker. Now, via WebEx, Senator Gillibrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral, I want to discuss further Indo-Pacom's utility with addressing some of the human rights and humanitarian challenges in the region. As we all know here, our competition with China will also include a competition of values. And I believe this is a great opportunity to connect with our allies and showcasing our values to support human rights and human security. What changes do you foresee making to Indo-Pacom's humanitarian role while also ensuring our work coalesces with that being done by Australia, New Zealand, and others? And while we have a number of key allies in the region, some are more reluctant in this space than others. How will you use Indo-Pacom's influence in the region to improve coordination with reluctant allies? And last, in the case of countries like Myanmar, where democratic backsliding is clearly occurring and where there are complex security dynamics, how would you work with our allies to approach this issue as Indo-Pacom's commander?
Thanks, Senator. I think you highlighted, again, the key advantage that the United States has in the region, and that is our relationships with our allies and partners, all of those based on our values. Like-minded nations continue to work together, and as you described, humanitarian assistance and in response to natural disasters is something that we monitor, track, maintain every day, whether they be earthquakes, eruptions, tsunamis, and there are many examples in history of those things that we have done. I think back to the tsunami in Banda Aceh, Indonesia in 2004 when the USS Lincoln showed up on the scene to rescue and administer support to thousands of Indonesians. And we're prepared to do that every day. As you know, the region hosts the Ring of Fire and is prevalent to those events. Continued engagement with those allies and partners, and as soon as they need help, we're prepared to respond. And if confirmed, I'll continue to ensure that we are ready to do that with our allies and partners.
Thank you. Admiral, as you mentioned in your statement prior to the hearing, it's the commander's responsibility to set a culture that prevents sexual harassment and sexual assault. And you referenced the array of tools in the commander's toolkit to carry out this duty. Wouldn't you agree that a skillful commander should be able to accomplish this mission without convening authority? After all, a very small percentage, approximately 3% of commanders ever need to invoke convening authority or have the responsibility to invoke convening authority and are still required to create a culture that is inhospitable to harassment and assault.
Senator, we rely on our commanders every day to ensure that they take care of their personnel. The sanctity of the chain of command is critical to ensure that military operations can be executed. It's also critical to ensure that the unit is prepared and ready. There is certainly no place in our military for sexual harassment, discrimination, or any other form that makes us ineffective. I know the Secretary of Defense is executing an independent study. If confirmed, I would certainly like to see the results of that study, but I am open to any options that it identifies that would make us more effective in this role.
Well, obviously, that 90-day commission will provide some guidance on this issue. But with regard to your view, given that 97% of commanders do not have convening authority for general court martials, do you agree it's not necessary to maintain good order and discipline?
Ma'am, Senator, I'd have to look at that a little more deeply and understand the percentages that you identified. The convening authority still runs through the chain of command, as I am aware. But like I said, I would be certainly open to anything that does more and is more effective at taking care of our service members and their families.
Well, just for clarity, convening authority for general courts martial is for 06s and above. And obviously you have lower ranking commanders, more junior to 06s and above. And they have to maintain good order and discipline within their unit for each level of command before you get to a colonel and above. Do you agree with that?
Yes, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Gillibrand. And now via WebEx, Senator Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Admiral. It's good to see you again today. One of the issues that you and I spoke about when we met last week was the evolving dynamic between India and China. The deadly skirmishes between Indian and Chinese troops underscored the high level of tension along the border. And China has made no secret of its ambition to encircle India with military and economic influence. As Indo-Pacom commander, how would you approach this dynamic? And what do you see as the future of the U.S.-India military cooperation?
Thank you, Senator. The work with India, the Quad, and as well as all the allies and partners in the region continues to be the strength, and it highlights our ability to ensure that the entire force, the entire region understands the cooperation and the alignment with international's norms, standards, rules, and laws. The work or the effort that India has taken on to protect their northern border, I think, is noteworthy. The fact that the PRC has decided to instigate that skirmish on the northern border is noteworthy to all of us. So the strength of multilateral operations with India and with all our allies and partners is certainly a mechanism to add to our deterrence in the region.
You know, you spoke about the floundering of international laws by China along the border with that skirmish. We also see their island building campaign in the South China Sea and their use of the depth trap diplomacy that they have elsewhere. What do you believe are China's goals with regard to this border region in India?
Thank you, Senator. I think the goals are to supplant U.S. security leadership in the region overall, whether they be in the South China Sea or on the northern border of India, and generate a change to the international rules beyond what the nations all agree to under the UNCLOS, 1982 UNCLOS Treaty, and ultimately to change those rules to the benefit of the PRC. Ultimately, it would change the view of the region from those who believe in a free and open Indo-Pacific to those that might want a more authoritarian, might equals right, closed Indo-Pacific.
If I could ask you more about the islands in the South China Sea. The president of China in 2015 stated, quote, relevant construction activity that China is undertaking does not target or impact any country, and there is no intention to militarize, end quote. Would you agree that this is a false statement? It's been proven false?
Yes, Senator, I would. It's certainly been evident to me that when we listen to the words that come from the PRC, we have to look at not just words and listen to words, we have to look at deeds. And your example of the islands in the South China Sea are probably the best examples. All of those islands have been militarized, whether it be with missiles, jammers, but it is in exact opposition to what has been said.
What capabilities and projections of power has China gained from those facilities that they've constructed?
It certainly expands the footprint. And when you talked before about contested space, it makes it easier for the PRC to be able to operate further from their coast with
do you think the United States should continue that freedom of navigation missions in and around these disputed territories that they have?
Yes, Senator.
These features they built? I'm sorry, did you say yes, you would support that?
Yes, Senator.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Fisher. Now via WebEx, Senator Hirono.
You're good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral, I asked the following two initial questions of all nominees who come before any of the committees on which I serve. So here are the questions. Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No, Senator.
Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement related to this kind of conduct?
No, Senator.
No.
Admiral, it was a pleasure and a privilege to introduce you today to the committee. President Biden and Secretaries Blinken and Austin have taken several steps in recent weeks to engage with our partners and allies in the Indo-Pacific. In particular, I want to highlight the President's call with our Quad's allies, Australia, Japan, and India. If confirmed, what steps will you take in your new role to strengthen our partnerships with the Quad nations?
Thank you, Senator, and thanks very much for the kind introduction again. As you've heard me state many times, the allies and partners that we have are clearly in asymmetric advantages, as the PRC has, I would argue, only one ally or partner, and that's North Korea. So we would continue to work towards increased multilateral operations if I'm confirmed. Again, the Quad we talked about only be an example of only one of those. We do many things with the ASEAN nations. We do things with our Japanese counterparts and our Korean counterparts in the forms of missile defense. And I think, again, if confirmed, we would continue to expand those efforts and operations to work together on a broader scale.
Admiral, I know that we have a very important partnership with South Korea, but they are not part of the Quad. I'm a little bit curious and concerned that they are not, but can you assure me that they are definitely in the mix of the relationships that you consider very important in that part of the world?
Yes, Senator, certainly one of 5 treaty allies in the region. Our relationship with South Korea, they are a linchpin as a part of the alliance. Their capabilities, their equipment that they have, were extremely interoperable. There's currently an exercise that's going on right now that we continue to train and build readiness with the South Koreans. As it applies to the Quad, that would have to be discussions with the other 3 members to determine if they would like to pull those in. If not, there are many other opportunities to generate additional multilateral events with the South Koreans.
I know that you are aware that many of us are very concerned about the issue of sexual assault and harassment in the military, and I just want to note that we will continue to focus on this, and we are, of course, aware of the DoD Sexual Assault Commission, and I would certainly hope that you will pay much attention to the recommendations made by the commission, because the issue of sexual harassment and assault continues to plague our military, and I know that Senator Gillibrand also questioned you about that. Regarding the PDI, Admiral Davidson's new PDI report called for significant increases in spending across all lines of the PDI effort. Do you believe the increase in spending proposed in the Admiral Davidson's PDI is sufficient to deter our adversaries in the region?
Yes, Senator. As I've looked at PDI, Admiral Davidson's strategic, very thoughtful approach aligned with this committee has identified the foundational capabilities needed to do deterrence, and it would have to be sustained to ensure that we can execute this on a longer term.
Admiral Davidson listed the Aegis Guam Defense System, GDS, as his top priority in the PDI, but similar Aegis Ashore facilities in Romania and Japan have had delays and been over budget. With that, do you believe the cost and time estimates for deploying of GDS are accurate? And will GDS also be your #1 priority in this region?
Senator, it certainly would be a top priority. 170,000 U.S. citizens on Guam, over 20,000 service members that force protection is absolutely required for. I am not aware of the different cost comparisons of the overrun, but if confirmed, I will certainly look into that, ma'am, and determine. It's not the first one we've put in, so I would hope there would be some learning, and the ability to stay on cost and schedule would be easier.
Thank you, and I realize I think I'm running out of time, but I'm very concerned about our missile defense structure, and so I will continue to work with you should you be confirmed, of course. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Rona. Senator Cotton, please.
Admiral, thanks for your appearance, thanks for your service, and congratulations on your nomination. I want to talk a little bit more about Taiwan, and here I want to very much get your professional military advice. Taiwan is a very vibrant democracy, and we respect our democratic partners like Taiwan. But I want to hear from you about why Taiwan is so critical from a military and strategic standpoint. Why would Beijing so desire to have Taiwan annexed to the mainland, and how would it complicate your military planning if Beijing did invade and annex Taiwan? Strictly from a military and strategic standpoint, I don't want to talk about protecting Taiwanese democracy. I'm committed to that. I know you are as well. From a military strategic standpoint, why is it so important to Beijing that they annex Taiwan?
Thanks, Senator. As you know, they view it as their #1 priority. The rejuvenation of the Chinese Communist Party is at stake, very critical as they look at the problem. From a military standpoint, the strategic location of where it is, as it applies to the potential impact of 2/3 of the world's trade, certainly a critical concern. Additionally, the status of the United States as a partner with our allies and partners also is at stake should we have a conflict in Taiwan. So those two reasons are really the strategic main concerns that I would see.
What would it mean for the PLA's enhanced capabilities if they were able to turn Taiwan essentially into a military base? If they were able to base aircraft and ships on the island of Taiwan, much like you discussed earlier with those islands they've done in South China Sea, what advantages would that give to them?
Senator, certainly would extend their reach. They would extend the contested environment. It would threaten our allies and partners, think the Philippines, and it extends their reach initially from away from their coast and to challenge the entire region, all allies and partners and friends.
You spoke earlier about continuing freedom of navigation operations in the South China Sea despite those militarized man-made islands. If Taiwan were annexed to the mainland and the PLA Navy were based there, would you be able to continue freedom of operation navigations in the South China Sea, or does the fact that Taiwan sits right at the top of the South China Sea significantly impede those operations?
Senator, we would still execute those operations. It certainly would be at greater risk.
And then speaking about the points you made about our allies, if you're sitting in a treaty partner's capital conducting military planning, say Tokyo or Seoul, or for that matter, sitting in any Southeast or Southern Asian capital and thinking the United States might support you in the face of Chinese aggression, if we stood idly by while China invaded Taiwan and annexed it to the mainland, how would you feel?
And Senator, that was my second point. It certainly would impact the credibility of the United States as a partner in the region.
Thank you. Last week, Admiral Davidson testified that he thinks the PLA may have the capability to effectively invade Taiwan in as soon as 6 years, maybe less. Do you agree with that view?
Senator, there's many numbers out there. I know Admiral Davidson said 6 years. You have to ask him where he made that assessment. There are spans from today to 2045. My opinion is this problem is much closer to us than most think, and we have to take this on, put those deterrence capabilities like PDI in place in the near term and with urgency.
Yeah, I share that view. It's not a 2045, it's not a 2030 problem. I suspect it may not even be a 2026 problem. From a military planning point of view, what is the best time of year, given light weather and sea conditions, for the PLA to launch an invasion of Taiwan? Is it the middle part of spring?
Yes, sir. That is certainly a better time as it applies to sea state and environmentals.
Do you recall when the Sochi Winter Olympics ended in 2014?
Yes, Senator.
February 23rd. Do you recall when Russia invaded Crimea?
I don't have the date, Senator. I apologize.
February 27th, 4 days later. The Beijing Winter Olympics end February 23rd next year.
Thank you, Senator Cotton. Senator Kane, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Admiral Aquilino, congratulations on the nomination. I enjoyed our conversation. I enjoyed visiting you in Hawaii last year with Senator Hirono. Senator Hirono was asking you questions about the Quad, and I've been very interested in this since we started to hear about it at this committee a number of years ago. I was intrigued that the first ever head of nation meeting of the Quad was about vaccines. Even though most of the discussion about the Quad has been in the Armed Services hearing, this first big initiative with the heads of states was about funding vaccine development in India that could be used to vaccinate the Indian population, but also could be used to produce vaccines that could be used throughout the region. And that made me want to get your perspective on, if we're thinking about our national security challenges in the Indo-Pacom, how much of our thought should be about a whole of government approach rather than just an armed services approach.
Yes, Senator, we need to engage with every aspect of national power to be able to compete against the PLA. So whether it be diplomacy, whether it be scientific, whether it be informational, every aspect has an ability to generate deterrence, extend the cooperation with our allies and partners, and that's one example. From the military perspective, this last year, the Quad, or in the form of India, Japan, the United States, and Australia executed Operation or Exercise Malabar. So the cooperation of those nations expands or currently has and needs to expand across all elements of national power.
I have always said to witnesses here about the Quad is that if the Big 12 can have 10 teams and the Big 10 and A10 can have 14 teams each, there's no reason a Quad can't have more than 4 nations. And so I would encourage us to always broaden our reach in that way. Missile attacks on U.S. forces in Iraq over the past year have shown a level of precision that our forces have not experienced during much of the early years of the global war on terror. And so the attacks display both accuracy and devastation, but also the vulnerabilities of our systems to defend against them. Any conflict in PACOM is guaranteed to see a widespread use, in my view, of precision-guided missiles against both bases and ships. Do you think there's adequate attention paid in current budgeting for medium and long-range air defense weapons?
Senator, I think the Pacific Deterrence Initiative has identified a need that you just articulated to ensure we can protect our force. It's combined with not just missiles, but the ability to integrate and the ability to command and control them, as well as tie those with our allies and partners, would give us a broad ability to protect and defend all of our citizens and sailors, soldiers, airmen, Coast Guardsmen, and Marines.
Thank you for that. The Navy is in the early stages of replacing the F-18 Super Hornet with a program called Next Generation Air Defense, which I guess goes by 2 acronyms, NGAD or FAXX. Where do you see gaps emerging in our current fleet structure of F-18s and F-35s that have to be addressed by a new platform like the NGAD?
Thank you, Senator. The capabilities that are needed against this competitor need to be more technologically advanced. To Senator Inhofe's question, the need for 5th-generation aircraft has been identified and is needed to enter and operate in those contested spaces. And NGAD or FAXX, I think, is our next step to advance the technology and provide even more capability to be able to operate in those contested spaces. It's very important, and the Navy's currently working on the development of the air wing of the future. So think of those carrier strike groups we talked about before being even more lethal, being able to enter and operate in those contested spaces. It's critical to the deterrence needed.
Do you have a sense of the timeline for when NGAD may come online in the Indo-Pacom?
Senator, I don't have a sense of that exact date. I think they are looking at IOC in 2030 or 2031.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Kane. Now let me recognize via WebEx Senator Rounds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral, first of all, let me just say thank you very much for your service and your family's service to our country. I appreciated the discussion that we had last week and believe that you are the right person at this time in this critical position. A couple of thoughts. Number one, I want to go back and visit just a second an issue that Senator Hirono brought up, and that is Guam. And we didn't really get into it, but would you talk with us a little bit about just how critical Guam is in terms of any of our strategies with regard to this AOR? And right now, part of the discussion has been, how do you defend Guam? What are the options available? And I know that Admiral Davidson had recommended, and Congress did not agree last year with the funding for the GDS, the Guam Defense System. But I'd like your thoughts on it as well, because it seems to me that without that in place, we leave, as you indicated, literally thousands of our own military men and women at risk.
Thank you, Senator. Guam, as we all can agree, I think, is an incredibly strategic location in the Indo-Pacific. West of the international date line, the ability to host over 20,000 of our U.S. forces to be able to respond if needed, and the force protection for those service members, families, as well as the 170,000 U.S. citizens is critical. Admiral Davidson highlighted the need for 360-degree coverage. He also highlighted the need for those systems to be in place by 2025. Goes back to our point of near term and with a sense of urgency. So I certainly believe we need that capability, and if confirmed, look forward to working with you to ensure we can get it in place.
Thank you. I agree, and I think as Senator Cotton indicated in his remarks, most certainly time is of the essence, and we can't simply sit back and just say, this is just something that we can put off for another day. An area that I think is going to continue to be an item of discussion, and I think in your AOR, just like in any other place in the world, the DoD cyber strategy, which was published in December of 2018, charges DoD to defend forward, shape the day-to-day competition, and prepare for war. We've experienced highly sophisticated attacks within the cyber domain from the likes of both Russia and China in the past. And most recently, we've seen some of their capabilities with the most recent attacks on business and some of our governmental entities as well. Can you discuss how you view this threat from the perspective of the Indo-Pacom and how you would approach it through the lenses of strategy, operations, and exercises? What exercises are you doing, and how do you fill this in? I mean, when we talk about the issues of cyber, it is the least expensive part of defense, and yet it impacts all of the other domains, air, land, sea, and space.
Thanks, Senator. As we've seen, many of our competitors are operating at the level short of war through the cyberspace domain that you identified. It's critically important. In many cases, it's an indicator of follow-on events that we might see. And if confirmed, I think our focus needs to be on, number one, the strongest defense possible to ensure that those competitors are unable to take advantage of that space. And combined with that, it's important that we have those same conversations with our allies and partners so that they are just as defended and we don't provide an alternative path for anyone to enter in our cyber domain.
Thank you. One last item that I just wanted to bring up that I think when we talk about fifth generation aircraft and the need for more of them, and particularly right now we're talking about those that could be used within the carrier-based fleet that we've got. But we've also got the B-21 coming online and will probably be operational well before the next gen fighter systems will be available. The B-21, which would be based in safe bases, South Dakota and Texas, is the knock down the door type of a system, which basically will slow down our adversaries who think that they may very well be safe from a carrier-based operation because of their land-based defense systems that they have in place now, specifically China. Could you talk a little bit about the integrated need and capabilities that the B-21 would bring in the Indo-Pacific region?
Yes, Senator. Just want to highlight before, it was a specific Navy question that I answered, but that said, it will obviously take the entire joint force to be able to compete. Again, as it applies to where might be the best place, I would love to see the results of the Secretary's posture review, that global posture review, and if confirmed, to see what does that mean and how does it impact the Indo-Pacific.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Rounds. Let me recognize via WebEx Senator King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to follow up on Senator Rounds' questions, Admiral. I can guarantee you that at this very moment, hundreds, if not thousands, of very smart software engineers and hackers are in China attempting to figure out how to compromise our command and control systems, our IRS systems, our force projection software. I cannot stress more to you the urgency of being prepared for this. All of our preparations, all of our money, all of our systems are useless if we can't communicate with them, or on the other hand, if they are rendered inert by a cyber attack. So I hope that you will see this as an extremely high priority. You should be having people trying to hack your own systems to determine how safe they really are.
Thanks, Senator. It truly is important, and the word urgency I use frequently as it applies to all aspects of the missions assigned, additionally in cyberspace. And we actually have cyber aggressor teams that execute the role that you just described, and I believe it's worthwhile to ensure we expand those tests, if you will, into all of our operations and exercises, sir. And if confirmed, I will continue to do that.
Thank you. One of the things that worries me is are the continuing friction, if you will, in the South China Sea and the potential for an accident, for an accidental conflict. Do we have mill-to-mill communications established with the Chinese, a kind of red phone where you and your counterpart in China can have direct communication if there is, for example, a Chinese fighter jet flies too close or actually clips a destroyer in the South China Sea on a freedom of navigation mission?
Thank you, Senator. I do not have a direct communication with my counterpart. I know Admiral Davidson has advocated for that ability at his level, and I know the chairman does have a connection that he can utilize. If confirmed, I would continue to advocate for that connection to ensure there is an ability to de-escalate if there were an event, and the ability to not let it go out of control. I think that communication mechanism could be effective if that connection was with someone who had decision-making authority.
I appreciate your interest in pursuing that. I think it could be critically important. Law of the sea. You mentioned what the Chinese are doing in the South China Sea in terms of claims. The Russians are doing similar things in the Arctic. Do you believe it's in the national interest for this country to enter into the Law of the Sea Treaty?
Yes, Senator, I do.
And I've asked every flag officer that has appeared before this committee that question, just pretty much regularly, and for the last 8 years, I've never gotten a negative answer. Why do you think it's important that we be a part of this treaty structure?
Senator, there's really two main reasons. Number one, as the group gets together, it would be certainly beneficial if we had a seat at the table when there were discussions occurring as it applied to potential adjustments and the interpretations of those international laws. The second reason it makes us, or puts us in an increased position of credibility. We adhere to the UNCLOS treaty in our operations, and it would make our position much stronger if we were signatories.
I appreciate that, Admiral, and hope to persuade my colleagues of those arguments indeed. I mentioned the urgency of the cyber threat. I think another urgent concern is vulnerability to hypersonics. Do you see that as an issue that we really need to be accelerating our defensive, not only our hypersonic capacity, but our ability to defend against hypersonic attacks, particularly since forward deployed carrier strike groups, for example, are part of the essence of our deterrence?
Yes, Senator, absolutely. It's the next step. It's capabilities that our competitors are pursuing. And as I see it, we need to pursue both offensive capability in the form of hypersonics and defensive capabilities.
Thank you, Admiral. I appreciate your answers and look forward to voting for your confirmation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator King. Senator Ernst, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Admiral, thank you very much for being here today and for your willingness to continue to serve our great country. To your wife as well, Laura, welcome. It is good to have you here, Jessica, as well. And to your Fleet Master Chief. You always need a battle buddy when you come to Capitol Hill. So thank you all for what you do for the men and women that serve within your fleet, and to those that will be serving upon confirmation in the Indo-Pacific Command as well. So we have talked a number of issues today, and my colleagues have highlighted a lot of issues. All of these are nesting together quite well. I'm going to dive in a little bit more, just a bit on China, but last week we did discuss some of the major influencers in the region. Of course, China, but then we also see the Russian influence. We see the Iranian influence and North Korea as well. So what are your thoughts on the Iranian influence first within Indo-Pacom? We're seeing them work alongside North Korea in logistical areas such as munitions. Is this alarming to you? And what other threats or concerns might you have with the Iranians engaging in the Indo-Pacom AOR?
Thanks, Senator. Certainly contributions in the form of energy support that exceed the UN Security Council resolutions is concerning. Again, providing capability that we would be concerned about in the form of technology transfer, whether it be missile technologies, nuclear capabilities, all those would negatively impact the region and negatively impact all of the allies and partners.
So it is definitely something that we need to keep an eye on, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Admiral. And as well, we have talked about China and why it's important then that we have interoperability capabilities with our regional partners and our allies. Some of the things we've mentioned today, Senator Kane brought up missile defense, others have talked about humanitarian assistance. Are there other capabilities, whether it is hard infrastructure or munitions, things of that nature, or other soft capabilities that we can work on as well with our partners that would enhance our partnership in that region?
Yes, Senator. And again, the capabilities are across the spectrum. It's critical that we have allies and partners to support, whether it be logistics, whether it be access, whether it be combined interoperability in the form of operations. Every aspect of it is important. I don't think there's one piece that you can leave out and be effective and be able to generate the deterrence needed.
Mm-hmm. One of the soft capabilities that China does tend to offer, or benefits that China offers to a number of those countries in that region, is training capabilities. They offer that assistance to many of our partners. Can you stress to us how important the IMET program is?
Yes, Senator. Again, it's one of those additional areas beyond operations and exercises that allow us to connect and get to that access, training, and improvement of our allies and partners. General Rudd supports all of the components currently, and in many cases, he's the lead effort as it applies to being able to get access and get in and train our allies and partners. So it's extremely important. We got to continue IMET, and if confirmed, I'll continue to stress that.
Fantastic. And as part of those training opportunities as well, and other types of capabilities, often operating in the gray zone are our special operations forces. And can you describe what role you would see our SOF playing in the Indo-Pacom Command area of authority, and what role that they might have in pushing back against China?
The Center of the Soft Team plays an important role across all aspects in the entire spectrum. Currently, their leading role in the information space as a part of Joint Task Force Indo-Pacific, currently located in Singapore. So while they touch every aspect of the spectrum, they're leading role in a couple of different places.
Thank you. My time is expiring, so I will stop there. But Admiral, thanks once again for stepping up to this nomination, and I look forward to confirming you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Ernst. Let me recognize via WebEx Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Admiral Aquilino, thank you for being here today. Congratulations on your nomination. So the Indo-Pacific represents the most consequential and challenging region of the world for the United States and our national security. And as commander of U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, you will be responsible for overseeing U.S. forces in the region. One of your top priorities will be contending with China and its growing influence both regionally and globally. Earlier this month, Admiral Philip Davidson, the current commander of Indo-Pacom, testified that the greatest danger to the United States is the erosion of conventional deterrence against China. He warned that without credible conventional deterrence, China may be emboldened to take action and supplant U.S. interests in the region. Do you agree with Admiral Davidson that the erosion of conventional deterrence is the greatest danger to the United States in the region?
Yes, Senator.
So Admiral Davidson also warned that China was on course to double their nuclear stockpile this decade. And he agreed with a claim by one of my colleagues that if China quadrupled their nuclear stockpile, they could, quote, have nuclear overmatch against the United States. But I want to look into the numbers on this. Last year's report on China's military power shows that their stockpile of operational nuclear warheads is only in the low 200s, far fewer than the approximately 3,800 in the United States active stockpile. So, Admiral, are you aware of any evidence that suggests that China intends to quadruple its nuclear stockpile in this decade?
Senator, I think what I would say is there are many opinions on what those numbers are. I think the numbers you quoted are accurate with regard to today. What I would say is we see China increasing at a rate that is faster than anyone previously believed their nuclear stockpile. So while I can't directly at this point understand their intent or what their end target is, they are increasing. If you were to look at what they've done with their conventional force, I would see no reason why I would expect anything other than to have them continue to increase their nuclear capabilities and aspirations.
Well, so let me just ask that then maybe from a different point of view. I understand what you're saying and I appreciate it. But even if they did quadruple their stockpile, China would still have fewer warheads than the U.S. has currently deployed. Is that right?
If it were to quadruple today, that would be accurate, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So from your perspective as the commander of Pacific Fleet and the incoming Indo-Pacom commander, would you agree that credible conventional deterrence are still the best way of protecting U.S. interests in the Indo-Pacific region and avoiding a conflict with China?
Yes, Senator, that conventional deterrence to avoid crisis or conflict is certainly the main effort as I would see it if confirmed.
Okay. Thank you, Admiral. I appreciate your comments on this. China presents the greatest geopolitical challenge to the United States since the end of World War II. And it's critical that we face this challenge with clear eyes. And distorting the threat to justify building more nuclear weapons at home is not a recipe for success here. So I look forward to your confirmation and I look forward to working with you to advance areas of shared interest. Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.